Hey, it's Ollie, and today I want to talk about how to teach languages to kids. A really popular question actually that's come up from you guys in the YouTube channel. So thanks for that, and also keep feeding through your questions if you've got things you'd like to ask me. I think there's a tab at the top of here, community or something like that, where you can actually send me messages directly, so please do that. So when we talk about teaching languages to kids, it's a huge topic. It depends on many things. Is this language a heritage language? Is it a language that you speak yourself? How old is the kid? What other languages they speak? It's really, really complex. So what I thought I'd do, because it's actually a topic I've been wanting to get to grips with for a while, and it's an area that I have some expertise in actually. But I think because it's such a big topic area, I've kind of resisted it precisely for that reason. So what I'm going to do now is give you a series of tips that are very narrowly aimed at parents with young kids, so like babies and toddlers, who are interested in teaching them a language which they don't necessarily speak fluently themselves. Okay, so this will, you'll know right away whether this is for you. And I'm going to give you a few kind of very, very practical ideas that will help you get started right away. So the trick with kids is everything needs to be based around story. Right? Kids exist in a make-believe world where they are inventing things for themselves, fantasizing, and so the way to teach anything to kids is to actually get in on that and play along. So you need to get books in the language. Depending on where you live, you can probably find a Spanish bookstore or a French bookstore or something like that, or basically through any means you can track down a bookstore of the language that you want to teach the kid, and buy a ton of books. Really, the more the better, because you never know what kids are going to be, what's going to really take their fancy. But when you find something that intrigues them, then that's the thing you need to go for. And of course, remember that kids will be intrigued first and foremost by the pictures in the book rather than the language or the words, right? So you need to get something that matches their interests, that you think they're going to like. Now, if you don't speak the language at all, then this is a kind of a tall order. But again, I'm going to assume that you speak the language a little bit, enough at the very least to be able to read along with the book with them. So now, from this point on, once you've got a nice selection of books with some nice stories and some nice pictures, your task then is all about regularity. You need to have a time every day which is story time in that language. Okay, so if you're teaching your kid French, then you need to have French story time for at least half an hour a day. It could be in the evening before bed or whatever it may be. But it's through the regularity of reading stories that you're going to get them familiarized with the language. And of course, because the words in the story are all written out in the book, you can actually rehearse this, and you can probably find the audio. For many popular books, you can find the audio online on Spotify or on YouTube and things like that. So you can actually practice by yourself reading out the text of the book with them. Now, when you're reading the book with them, you've got to leave your ego at the door. All right, and you've got to give it all of the oomph that you would if you're reading a book in your mother tongue. So you've got to be very exaggerated, you've got to be excited, you've got to draw them into the story, and it's your job as the storyteller to get the kid excited in the book. Now, what you want to do is focus on vocabulary. Kids, what do they learn more than anything else? So it's animals and colours, and perhaps other objects as well. But if you can find stuff with colours and animals, that's the stuff they're going to learn right away. So use the way that you would tell a story in your mother tongue to draw the kids' attention to the various objects in the book. Focus on nouns first of all. All right, so point out the animals, point out the colours, and again, you want to do that as much as possible every day. When you're repeating this book, you want to just keep pointing out that stuff. You might think that nothing is sinking in, but believe me, it is. There's not much you need to do other than just going over and over and over the material, doing your best to kind of point out the animals and the colours, and then gradually you introduce other things like, depending on what the story is, there might be a house in the story, or a forest or something like that, in which case you can focus on that word, draw the kids' attention by pointing to the pictures and things like that. Now, the trick then, as you keep doing this and as you keep moving on with this, is to start to draw links between what's going on in the book and in the real world. So for example, if you're pointing out a lion in Spanish in the story, el león, and the kid knows that when they see that in the book, it's El León, then when you're walking down the street and you see a poster of a lion, then point it out and ask them, what's that in Spanish? And get them to realize that too is El León, the lion. So you're getting them to sort of understand the context of the story and then sort of translate that out into the real world and start to draw those connections. And then bit by bit, your child will start to grow a vocabulary in the language based on the stories faster than you will believe. You've just got to keep it up, and I think keeping it up is the hardest point. The next best thing you can do, which does start to require slightly more language skills on your part, is to ask them questions and to try to be to have a kind of interaction in the language. Okay, so for example, if you're reading a book about animals, you can start to ask them in the language, who's that? What's he doing? What colour is he? Things like that. The same questions that you would ask in English, right? And start to get a bit of interaction and back and forth. And that way you're getting the kid actually thinking in the language, getting them used to responding to questions in the language, and it becomes more of an actual interaction for them rather than just a passive experience. Alright, so those three things, if you can just do those, let's just recap then. So we're talking about reading books in the language on a regular basis and pointing out the nouns, the things in the book that will be of interest to them, like the colours and the animals. Number two, it's drawing parallels between showing them that language in the real world, not just in the book. And then number three, it's starting to have some question and answer, some back and forth and dialogue in the language whilst you're reading the books. If you can do those three things, then I guarantee you over the course of a few weeks, you'll see you'll find that the kid is kind of turns around to you and starts to ask you questions in the language or point out things in the language, and it's an amazing thing when that happens. So that's what I got for you. If you've got any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Depending on interest, I might make more videos like this, or more, I don't know, maybe expand it into a series of tutorials or something like that. So I hope that was helpful. Teaching languages to kids is it's the best gift you can give them. The studies about bilingualism and the benefits thereof are once you read them, you can be left with no doubt in your mind that learning a second language for a kid is the way to go. Don't let your own ability or lack thereof in the language hold you back. It can be a great way to obviously bond with the child, but also to brush up your own language skills at the same time. Alright, I hope that's helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you'd like more like this, and I'll see you back in the next video.